Welcome to The Clear Voice, brought to you by Clear Career Professionals. This episode is a PositionCast focusing on the city manager opening in Nederland, Texas. With us to discuss the position is the president of Clear Career Professionals, Michael Boese, and one of our vice presidents, James Hopper. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
James, it's great to be on again, and we are honored to be partnered with the city of Nederland to look for their city manager. Such a great area, a long history, as we were talking about before we started the podcast, and it should be a really great episode for our candidates.
Excited to be here, James. Thank you so much.
Well, and I'd like to introduce our guest. We want candidates and others interested in what is going on in Nederland to hear from someone with direct knowledge, and today we are fortunate to have Nederland's Mayor, Jeff Darby, with us. Mayor, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. This is a good format in which candidates can learn more about the city of Nederland, the area, and also what mayor and the rest of the council are looking for. We have the mayor, of course, and 4 council members. Collectively, the 5 of us are the city council of Nederland.
Well, we're excited to get to know a little bit more about you and the city itself. Saying that, the first thing we always like to talk about is the mayor, our guest, and figure out a little bit about you, your background, your life's work, and what ultimately led you into public service.
Well, I was born all of 7 or 8 miles from here in Port Arthur, Texas. My parents were living in Nederland. They had just moved here about 9 months before I was born from Port Arthur. They were both natives of Port Arthur. Today, you can't tell where Port Arthur ends and Nederland begins, and Nederland ends and Port Neches begins, and where Port Neches grows and Port Arthur begin and end. You have to basically be from here or been here a long time to figure out where all the borders are. We're basically halfway between Beaumont, which is downtown Beaumont is about 11 miles northwest of here, and downtown Port Arthur, or what's left of it, is about 11 miles southeast of here. They call our part of Jefferson County Mid-County, although we're on the eastern edge of the Jefferson County. But Nederland, Port Neches, and Groves make up Mid-County. And the 3 cities do cooperate on a lot of things because we're all under 20,000 population. More about me, since you asked the question. As I said, I was born in Port Arthur. I've lived in Nederland different times, add them up together. It's about 50 years, and I'm 59. So I've lived in Nederland the vast majority of my life. I spent junior high, high school, and my college years in Groves, about 6 miles from here. My sister still lives there. I graduated high school in 1984, so I'm 59. I'm the very beginning, basically, of Gen X. Nederland is wild. We've never had a baby boomer as mayor. My immediate predecessor is turning 88 next week. So it's always been very older generations as mayor, and so we skipped the baby boomers and went to me. Graduated Lamar University in 1988 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in history and a minor in French, and I was 3 hours short of a double minor in political science. I got married in December of 88. My wife and I are still married. I was 22, she was 19. We helped raise each other. About 10 months after we got married, October of 89, being unemployed, and that's not a good way to start a marriage, I got hired with the United States Department of Labor, Wage and Hour Division, and I became a wage and hour investigator. If you're familiar with the general schedule, the GS in the federal government, I was a GS 1849, meant I was an 1800 series investigator. I wasn't law enforcement per se, but I enforced administrative, civil, and criminal law. I didn't do criminal investigations the majority of my time. That did not make me a LEO, a law enforcement officer, although I was threatening several years of prison time to people if they didn't comply with the basic laws I was enforcing. 32 of my 33 years as an investigator was at the Beaumont field office. Very few people wanted to come to Beaumont, Texas from elsewhere in the country, but as a native, and my wife is from Nederland, I thought it would be a great opportunity for us. Maybe for a few years to get some experience, but that few years turned into 33 years and 4 months. I retired 3 years ago this month, January of 2023, after, as I said, 33 years and 4 months. While in the federal government doing investigations, I investigated a lot of state and local government entities, counties, cities, school districts, special districts. I've always been interested in public service. I think even applying for the job, having 15 semester hours of political science, that shows that I probably have an interest in public service. And for a lot of my years, most of my 33 years, basically 25 of those years, I started out, I was elected by my peers to be their shop steward. Ultimately, in just a few years, became a national officer and the regional president for a 5-state region, dealing with all levels of government, from as an investigator investigating a city or a school district or a county, and then as a union officer dealing with presidential appointees and senior civil servants in Washington or senior civil servants in Dallas. I've got a much better than average understanding of public service. Now, obviously, this is my first time. I've been mayor since May 12th of last year of 2025. So this is my first time on this side of the continuum. It was a year ago in 2 days that I filed for election. I won with 58% of the vote against arguably the most popular man in Nederland. He's a nice guy. He's a great guy. He does a lot of work in the community, and he's accomplished in his field. He had about 2 years of city council, but I'm bringing a different vibe to it. Previous mayors have been somewhat of a rubber stamp of the city manager. I'm nobody's rubber stamp, but I am not going to micromanage. But the city manager, one of the expectations is he or she will have clear communications with the mayor and the city council members, and especially the mayor, because I'm here the majority of the days in the week. The only 2 council meetings I've missed since May 12th, I was in the hospital in late August, missed that one obviously, and then the second meeting in last month in December, my wife and I were on vacation in the Caribbean, our first vacation in a year, and it was desperately needed. Otherwise, I've made every city council meeting, and being in the union movement, our meetings are run by Robert's Rules of Order over there. So I've brought that knowledge of Robert's Rules of Order here and instituted it at city council meetings and teaching other city council members on the fly about how all of that works. I believe in process. I believe in doing things by the book, but at the same time, not letting perceptions of we've always done it that way, that's not going to interfere with getting the job done. Just because they've always done it that way doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. As far as me continuing, I'm married to that same lady, 37 years. We have 3 grown daughters. My wife graduated Lamar in 1991. She retired as a high school math teacher a year and a half ago. So we're both retired. That's what allows me to come down here to be sort of a full-time mayor, and for the whopping salary of $1 a year, mind you. We have 3 grown daughters, all of whom are graduates of Lamar University as well. One of them has her master's from Lamar as well. The other one has a master's from Ball State in Indiana. Their guys are all graduates of Lamar University as well. It's the family tradition. And we have a grandson who's 14 months old and a granddaughter who is 4 months old. Our grandson lives here about 2 miles from where I'm sitting at City Hall, and our granddaughter lives in Pearland. Hopefully all the kiddos will be back over here. Their guys are all from here, and chickadees all in one place. We see each other maybe once a year all together at Christmas time. That's a little background about me and my philosophy about how this stuff works. We are a council manager form of government here in Nederland. We have a little under 19,000 people. The city council appoints the city manager, police chief, finance director, city secretary, city attorney, city judge. Everybody else is the city manager's appointment. The problem is, or maybe the challenge or the opportunity that I've had as mayor in the last 8 months, 8 months as of last night, is that I've never had a permanent city manager. We've had one interim to another. And so working with a permanent city manager, someone who's going to be here more than a few months, is going to be good, but it's also having to learn how to work with a third person within a year. It's a good thing I'm pretty adaptable. We would want clear communication from the manager to the council, as I said earlier, and especially me, since I'm down here most days. We have an election coming up tomorrow. Is the first filing day. One of the city council members is not running for re-election, so we will have 1 and potentially 2 new council members. Certainly a time of transition in Nederland, Texas, but we're up to the challenge.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much. Thank you for that in-depth background. You're very much invested in this community, but in spite of the fact that you've only been mayor for 8 months, I think you're very well equipped for it. It sounds like you have a great passion for the community as well. So I want to congratulate you in that. As a candidate, if I'm looking at this city manager role, you talked a lot about yourself and your values come through, and you've talked a little bit about council. What could you tell us about the values that council has and about how those values drive their decision-making and their communication?
I'll just describe each council member right now, other than myself. All grew up here. I think all were born here and grew up here. 3 of the council members even went to Nederland High School and on to Lamar University, which is in Beaumont. Lamar is about 7 miles from where I'm sitting. People used to call it Jefferson County High School. Another of the council members is like me, went to the arch rival high school, Port Neches Groves, but moved here upon marrying Nederland girls. Ward 1 council member is not running for re-election. He is an engineer at one of the local chemical plants. It's my understanding he and the wife may be wanting to go to where their children are, more up toward the Metroplex. They do wind up moving. We're going to lose some good people there in the community, but they're going to be an asset in another community where they potentially land. So we have an engineer. Ward 2, we have a young man. I say young man, he's 30. He was 29 when he was sworn in last year. I've known him since he was born, literally. His parents and my wife and I went to church together. His father is a retired Nederland police sergeant. They're good people. They raised a good son. He is an analyzer technician at one of the local chemical plants. He and his wife have been married a couple of years, and they have a daughter who is, I believe, 5 months old. We've all been joking with him about losing sleep. He's a good young man. Being so young and relatively inexperienced in life, although he's an Eagle Scout. That's another one of his qualifications. I highly respect Eagle Scouts. The fact that he knows all of my daughters, they literally all grew up together. I can talk to him in a professional way, but he knows where I'm coming from. When you're 30 years old, you don't have tons of life experience just yet. Although in his 30 years, he just got named to one of the local 40 under 40 business and professional leaders in the area. So we have that. Our Ward 3 councilman is our longest tenured member of city council, not quite 4.5 years. Our Ward 3 councilman is serving that just one term. Ward 2 was sworn in May 12th, like me. Ward 3, he's been on council since August of 2021. He's about to retire. He is going to be retiring as a purchasing manager at one of the local oil refineries, one of the probably top 12 in refining capacity refineries in all of North America. But he is running, as I said, he's running for re-election. He just brings calmness to the council. Being a manager in an oil refinery is chaos, controlled chaos. He's dealing with people from all over the world and the local people that work at the refinery. So he's very stable, very settled. Ward 4 councilman is also our mayor pro tem. He was on council as a young man from 2009 to 2011. I've also literally known him since he was a baby. His mother and my mother were very close friends. I helped him in his campaigns when he ran as far back as 20 years ago. He's a vice president at a local credit union. He and his wife have been married about 5 or 6 years. They've got a almost 4-year-old little girl who rules the roost, as most young kids do. His wife is a teacher. So again, all of us are professional people. We're all seasoned in life, and our 30-year-old, for being a 30-year-old, he's very seasoned. As I said, our mayor pro tem has that previous 2 years, and literally his uncle is a former mayor of Port Arthur who was bringing him and his twin brother on all sorts of political and business and whatnot meetings when they were just out of high school. So he has a whole lot more practical political experience than most other people in town. We're a good team together. We don't all see eye to eye on everything. All of the votes have not been 5-0. I've lost some votes. I've won more votes. But, it's politics. I don't tell people how to vote. I don't pressure them, and they don't tell me how to vote. It's a good team, in many ways different people, in many ways driven men, that's okay. And we've all learned that it's okay if we disagree.
Yes, sir. I think a great team is always going to have some divergent opinions. That gives you perspective. You've given a great background. I just have one follow-up question. If I'm the incoming city manager, I'm probably going to be the only person who wasn't born and raised in Nederland. Therefore, what can I do to most quickly develop trust between myself and the council?
Clear, open, and honest communication. Without communication, that's where rumors and innuendo begin. As I said, we're not expecting the new incumbent city manager to get permission, but at the same time, we have a right to be apprised of what's going on. We have a right to guide him or her, and we have the right to maybe warn that person that might not be, maybe it worked in West Texas or North Texas, but that may not work in this community. We're very much culturally a mix of Texas and Louisiana. You're not going to find any other place in Texas or the entire country like this. People in the rest of Texas think we're more Louisiana, whereas an hour east of us in Lake Charles, Louisiana, people in the rest of Louisiana think Lake Charles is very much Texas. So we're in that continuum between the Texas, the Southern, and the Louisiana French cultures right here. Most people here have very traditional beliefs in family and religion and things like that. But at the same time, our juries here, for example, in Jefferson County are known for giving large verdicts in personal injury cases. It's kind of like that old-fashioned Southern populism where we believe in the common person type deal. It's not to say business doesn't get a fair shake, but most people have multiple firearms in the house, have been shooting since they were children. I started shooting when I was 7, and I had my grandfathers and my dad teach me. And the primary thing there is safety, of course. But you're going to have that sort of mindset, but at the same time, Nederland and all of Jefferson County have improved in that we are now much more culturally and ethnically diverse here than we were 30 or 40 years ago. Growing Hispanic population, growing African American population, much more same-sex couples are able to be seen in the community without being publicly judged. In those respects, the community is certainly modernizing, and people may have their own beliefs about things, but they're not coming out and just being public about their judgment. In the Christmas parade, I was saying Feliz Navidad as much as I was saying Merry Christmas. Just seeing the people on the side of the street and hearing them speak Spanish. I speak Spanish pretty well. About a year or two ago, the city had to hire a bilingual clerk to work in the billing department because probably 10% of our population is not proficient in English. Mainly Spanish, but the various languages from India and Pakistan. My youngest daughter was a teacher at one of the elementary schools. They had 8 or 10 languages there. So it's not Dallas or Houston or San Antonio or Austin by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not monolithically white anymore.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that.
Well, Mayor, we've talked a little bit about council and yourself, but our candidates may be moving in from a different part of the state. And, there's a lot of questions when you move into an area about schools and amenities, recreation, entertainment. Can you talk a little bit about why somebody would want to move to Nederland? What's there? What keeps you there?
The Nederland Independent School District is one of the highest rated in the entire area, academically, athletically, other university interscholastic league, UIL events, a tradition of excellence in all of those areas. Jefferson County has the 8th lowest property tax rate in the state, thanks to the large amount of industry we have. And in Jefferson and Orange counties right now, there's about $250 billion with a B in investments in energy. Port Arthur has the 2nd largest refinery in North America. And Beaumont has the 5th or 6th, and the other 2 in Port Arthur are all within the top 15. We have 3 dozen chemical plants in the area. That helps to keep what the residents have to pay lower than it would be elsewhere in Texas. Our city tax rate is the lowest in Jefferson County. Now, that's a good thing, but it can be a bad thing when we have the amount of infrastructure work that needs to be done. In fact, we raised our property taxes about $0.015 this past year, 2025. primarily to give our retirees their first cost of living adjustment in 42 years. So they hadn't had one since 1984, the year I graduated high school, when I had a whole lot more hair and a whole lot less sense. We are less than 2 hours from most everything in the Houston area. So world-class medical, a lot of entertainment. Here, we do have fewer and fewer concerts coming here. Jefferson County's population has been flatlined for most of the last 50 or 60 years. So it's not a growing part of the state population-wise, but right here in what we call Mid-County, in Nederland and next door in Port Neches and Grove, the schools are very highly rated. If a person likes outdoor activities, plenty of deer hunting just north of us into East Texas or elsewhere in the state. We have a whole lot of migratory fowl, birds coming through here. So a bunch of people that like to duck hunt, have all sorts of opportunities there. Freshwater, saltwater fishing. The Neches River, which runs past part of Nederland, is mainly freshwater, but in the summer it's very brackish, so you can get some saltwater species of fish there. Lamar University, again, just 7 miles from here, has several cultural events during the year. Lamar's got just under 20,000 students, so it's not small, but it's not huge. I'm partial to it. I'm on the Alumni Advisory Board as a proud member of the class of 1988. So events, athletic events, cultural events are just a few minutes up the road. And the climate is hot and humid 5 months out of the year. On Christmas Day, it was 78 degrees. I've seen it on Christmas Day being 12 degrees. So it can be all sorts of crazy weather, something not to be happy about, but we are only 20 miles from the Gulf, which means we pay very close attention during hurricane season. And we were heavily impacted by Hurricane Rita in 2005, Hurricane Ike in 2008. Harvey was not a hurricane when it came here, but Nederland has the national record of 60.58 inches of rain from a tropical event. And nearby Groves was second place with 60.53 inches. And then we were brushed by Hurricane Laura, which hit Cameron and Lake Charles, Louisiana, with 150-mile-an-hour winds. We were getting 80 to 90. It missed us. The worst wind missed us by about 15 miles. The storms are bad enough. The aftermath is worse. The recovery is worse. A person we would really want is someone who is experienced in emergency management and dealing with all of the alphabet soup agencies that are involved before, during, and after. And unlike previous city managers, they're not going to be the lead during something like that. That's the mayor's job in Texas, is to be the chief emergency management official. But I am wise enough to listen to an experienced and educated city manager and our fire chief and police chief. I'm not going to make decisions in a vacuum without consulting all of them. An ideal city manager will have practical experience in emergency management.
Thank you, sir. One of the things I would ask you is this. Candidates are going to possess technical skills and professional experience as they walk in the door. As you think about the organization's strengths and challenges, what complementary skills and experience do you think would most benefit the successful city manager?
I mentioned earlier about we have a lot of infrastructure work that is just in the drawing board, getting studies done. And it's going to be, frankly, for the remainder of the 2 years and 4 months of my term, this first term, it's going to be getting those in the ground. The vast majority of our housing stock was built between 1946, the first year after World War II, for about 30 years thereafter, 1976. Now, my house is built in the early 90s, but 80% of our housing was built between 1946 and 76, which means the infrastructure there is between 50 and 80 years old as well. We still have miles of concrete pipe that in our gumbo mud, as we call it, it's very high clay content. Like right now with a lack of rainfall, it shrinks, and with rainfall, it expands. It plays havoc on our concrete slabs and anything else concrete that's in the ground. Just ballpark. We're going to have tens of millions of dollars in repairs and renovations to do over the next several years. A city manager who's experienced not only in overseeing public works, hiring the right public works director, but also that knows how to go after OPM, as I call it, other people's money. We want grants, grants, grants. We want low-interest loans from Texas Water Development Board. A previous city manager was loath to go outside. He wanted council to issue certificates of obligation to cover everything. I want a certificate of obligation or a bond election to be the last option. I want to get grants and low interest loans, even lower interest than could be gotten through a bond election or issuing COs. So someone who is willing to go out and find other people's money to pay for as much as what we need to do, and not to use cash on hand for long-term infrastructure work. That's not a wise use of finance, in my opinion and the council's opinion. We need to have those, especially now with less money that would be coming to us from FEMA after a storm. We have to have about 6 months of cash on hand just in case it all hit the fan and the tax base is destroyed in a storm. Probably a third of our houses were damaged or destroyed during Rita over 20 years ago. In 2006, the next taxing year, appraised value of our properties went down. And so how can the city recover from that? A future Rita, a future Ike, a future Harvey without bankrupting the city?
Yes, sir. Besides having the creativity and the energy and a healthy contact list to go after OPM, as you mentioned, they also need to be well-versed in understanding the ebbs and flows of the hurricane seasons as well as the petrochem industry.
That's right. And we've got more types of industry coming in right around us. It's not even in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, certainly not in the city limits, but we've got a very large hydrogen plant that will be starting up this calendar year, located between Nederland and Beaumont. And hydrogen, it's number one on the periodic table. It's also probably number one in explosions. How would we respond to something like that? We have oil refineries and petrochemical plants. They've been around for over 100 years. We know that. It's background noise most days. But how would we respond to a hydrogen event? How would we have an ammonia plant between Nederland and Beaumont. That company has been very open about what the hazards are there. The ammonia leak would not get much beyond the perimeter fence. And they're still probably a mile and a half from our city limits. So dealing with local industry, new industries coming in. In November, as a matter of fact, we had, since we're Nederland, as we call it, in Dutch it's Nederland, which means the Netherlands. We had a delegation from the Dutch government and the city of Rotterdam government. We had a vice mayor from Rotterdam come here to Nederland to meet with us. That's only the beginning. We're going to have more of a relationship with our namesake country. And it helps that the Netherlands is either the third or fourth largest source of foreign investment in the United States. They punch way above their weight, as they say in boxing. And we already have several Dutch-owned companies in the area. That ammonia plant is being built by a Dutch company. So someone who sees that our world is much more interconnected, even here from Nederland, Texas, to other parts of the world, the Beaumont-Port Arthur Orange Ship Channel, Beaumont is the largest military port in the United States. Dealing with transportation issues, we have a very forward-thinking police chief. He's wanting more grant money in here, federal and state, getting us tied in with the Real-Time Crime Center in Beaumont. Overseeing these different things, this change that's coming to Nederland, getting away from what I used to call managed decline to let's look forward. In 1983, Nederland was the second city in the United States to have the automated garbage trucks. A driver who operates the arm, picks up the garbage, empties it. Second city in the United States. I think Tempe, Arizona was the first. Nederland was like that 40-some years ago. I want Nederland to have those kinds, a city manager today have those kinds of ideas to push Nederland forward for the next 10 to 20 years. We're going to be looking at a strategic plan for the city, the first one since the 1970s that was updated in the 1990s. That'll be part of our budget cycle this year as well. So to have a city manager who can do those things, we have represented police and fire. And any city manager that comes in, due to my union background, will need to not try to be a union buster. Anyone who says, I can't work with the union, I'll try to get rid of them, they need not apply, honestly. Our council member Ward 2 is a union member. Those that are in management are not anti-union. The one that works, Ward 3 councilman, the purchasing manager, he's not anti-union. He works with the union every day at his refinery. So the police and fire unions are very reasonable people. They're all local guys and ladies They've worked here for a long time. So we want people who will deal in good faith with our police and fire unions.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, you talked a little bit about the technical skills that you need in this candidate, and we'd like to talk a little more about the soft skills, the leadership skills. I know you've mentioned communication a lot, and we everybody on this podcast would agree with you. Communication is key. When you're talking about that, tell us specifically what would make you happy as the mayor and the council. Like practically, like what would a city manager do that you would be like, hey, that's great? Is this like once a month meetings? Is this weekly? Like, is this briefings? Is this emails? Like, what do you think you need?
Constant communication between the city manager and me, between city manager and council. The city manager able to meet, to be an outgoing person who will have continuous and free-flowing and honest communication with department heads, with employees. We have about 135 employees overall, and more than that with people in the community, with business leaders, with neighborhood groups, with just regular people, not in the city manager's office for 40 hours a week, going out on public works projects, going to the public works complex, which is about a mile and a quarter from here. Our city hall is very small. It was built in 2012, 2013, purposely too small. It was overcrowded when it was built. We own a building about a block and a half from here, which could be a new city hall, big enough for our needs, and it would allow us to sell 2 buildings that now have employees in it. Basically get everybody, and maybe have more one-stop shopping for the people of the city. Also better rated for hurricanes. We're not going to stay in town for a Category 4 or 5 hurricane. Anything 130 or above, we're going north. We're going to return as soon as the winds get down under 40. We're not going to try to ride one out here. But a city hall that can withstand 140 versus maybe 110 at this one. But as I said, not just for the storm purposes, but a larger city hall that would accommodate council. People cannot sit in the council chambers. They can maybe sit 20 people. When you have 50 people showing up, there's a lot of standing room only. We just need to have that someone who can be out in the community and not tied to his or her desk for 40 plus hours a week. The ideal city manager will need to know how to deal with people, not only within the city government, but people in the whole city of Nederland, our 18,856 people per the 2020 census. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much about that. And what other qualities other than communication, like leadership-wise, do you think are important?
Someone who will admit mistakes. Personally, I made a mistake in an interview with one of the local TV stations about the amount of the cost of living increases. On my own volition, I wrote a letter and asked the city staff to mail it out to all 150 retirees saying, I was wrong, and here's what it actually is going to be. And if you have any questions, please contact me. And again, I apologize. I should have been more prepared for the interview. I hadn't looked at the numbers in 4 months when I did the interview. The person who never makes a mistake isn't doing anything. So making mistakes is inherent in any job you do. Fess up, do better next time, and make amends for what you did. And that's important for the city manager. The city manager needs to lead by example. I never got commissioned, but I was in the Reserve Officer Training Corps, Army Reserve Officer Training Corps at Lamar University, and I learned as an 18-year-old cadet, if you're the lieutenant and you got 35 soldiers under your command, and the supply sergeant forgets to pack 36 rain gear and 36 cold weather gear, and there's only 35, you're the one that goes without, even though the supply sergeant made the mistake. So a city manager that will go, I'm putting myself last, I'm putting others before me. Servant leadership, I guess you could say. And someone who will admit mistakes, but someone who is quick to praise in public and slow to counsel in private. Too many times previous city managers have been public with their counseling of people. That is improper. One of my certifications is PHR, Professional in Human Resources, from the Society for Human Resource Management, Human Resource Certification Institute, rather, in Alexandria, Virginia. I've held that since December 1992. Praise publicly, counsel privately. Be quick to praise, be slow to discipline. Now, discipline's needed sometime. Discipline is needed sometime. I'm not saying, but we do practice progressive discipline here. We have a good human resources director who will guide the city manager into our policies. But that's the philosophy that the entire council is looking for, not just me.
That sounds great. And definitely, I 100% agree with what you said. Michael, can you talk to us a little bit about the salary and benefits for this position?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the salary is very competitive, James, with a range between $161,000 to $219,000, depending on commensurate qualifications and experience of the city manager selected. The city has all the typical benefits, the TMRS retirement, and there is relocation assistance available. They also offer monthly residence stipend options for employees within city limits. And so there is a way to get folks living within the community, which is always really important, especially when you're possibly moving in from the outside and really wanting to establish those trusting relationships there. But folks can apply for this position until January 23rd, and they can do that through Apply Nederland at clearcareerpro.com or on our website at clearcareerpro.com and also our LinkedIn page. This position is also posted on the city's website and on TML as well.
Well, thank you. And before we wrap up, do you have anything that we've missed or anything that you'd like to mention?
I'm really impressed to hear, Mayor's experience, and no matter which recruitment we work on and what our partners are, I'm really happy to say that it's good to see that the mayor and city commission really like the communication piece of what they're trying to do. If you can get that good communication flowing and make sure that everybody has a similar vision, then I think a strong city manager can really lead Nederland into the future.
Yes, sir. James, any final thoughts from you?
No, I'm just very impressed. I'll tell you, he's been very comprehensive, Mayor Darby, so I really appreciate that. Again, your passion is quite evident, and I think you've got a very attractive position here for the person that has the energy and the aptitude for the position.
Thank you. One thing I forgot to mention, there is a residency requirement. The city manager would have to live within the city limits. And caution, word to the wise, about 1/4 of the addresses of Nederland, Texas are not in the city limits. So when that person is looking for a place to live, when that person gets here, contact me or one of the other old timers. We could tell you what streets are within the city limits and which are not. That's the only position that has a residency requirement among city staff in Nederland, Texas. And by the way, it's Nederland. It looks like Nederland, but we get all sorts of pronunciations. But if you want to sound like you're from here, Nederland, or if you've been here a long time, Nederland. So we can butcher the Dutch language as well as we butcher the English language. When it comes time for that person to buy a house or rent a house or whatever it is, it would need to be within the city limits. And of course, the city council has to live within the city limits. That goes without saying, but we do have a residency requirement for the city manager. But other than that, it's been a good interview. Y'all have asked some good questions. I hope I've provided clear and not too rambling answers. And I look forward to the candidates you recommend to us for further interview. And yeah, the interviews will be in person. We want those to be in person down here. 80% of communication is nonverbal. I'm not an attorney, but I've done dozens of arbitration hearings from my time with my union, and we've gone up against attorneys, usually beat them, not always, but usually. But 80% of communication is nonverbal. To see how that person reacts. One of my old Alabama friends says, we go cheek to cheek and jaw to jaw. Get that person here or people here for the interviews, and also to see what it looks like, to see what the vibe is around here. When our interim city manager came here, his first day was Monday, November 3rd, I believe. It was 72 degrees, low humidity. Took him for a ride in my Mercedes convertible. And I said, the weather's like this all the time. Ain't it great? And he said, what other lies are you going to tell me? We can have some beautiful weather followed by some and we're 65 inches of rain is what we average every year. So it's not like the rest of Texas. Houston is close with the climate to here, but overall, it's not bad living here in Nederland. And you're only, like I said, a couple hours away from sporting and cultural and medical and other things in a big city like Houston.
Mayor, thank you again for taking the time to come on the PositionCast and discussing the opportunity with us. I know we've enjoyed listening a little bit about Nederland and hearing more about the position itself. From Clear, we thank you and the council for giving us the opportunity to help you find the right leader for your city. James and Michael, as always, thank you for your time To the listeners, thank you for being with us, and thank you for what you contribute to your communities day in and day out. Anyone who is interested in learning more about this role is encouraged to check out the brochure, which can be found on Clear Career Professionals' website or our LinkedIn page. Like and follow the podcast to stay up to date on amazing opportunities like this one in Nederland and for other leadership-related content. We will catch you next time.